Can you imagine it? Some mega projects didn't just spend millions, but tens of billions, even over $100 billion US. They wanted to change the country's future, but ended up becoming a global laughingstock. Today, let's take a look at the top 10 biggest failures in mega projects around the world. Number 1, you've definitely heard of it, but you'd never expect that to this day it remains nothing more than an empty shell. Number 10, Chuquicamata underground copper mine, Chile. On the high plateau of the Andes Mountains, Chile owns the world's largest open-pit copper mine, Chuquicamata. Its pit is several kilometers wide and nearly a kilometer deep, often called the largest scar dug by mankind on Earth. As the copper heart of Chile, it created enormous wealth during the 20th century. However, resources eventually run out. By the early 21st century, the depth of the ore body had become too great, making continued open-pit mining not only extremely costly, but also highly damaging to the surrounding environment and residents. As a result, Chile's state-owned copper company decided to invest billions of dollars to transform it into an underground mine, expecting to extend its life by more than 50 years. It sounded like a new path to rebirth, but reality soon proved it was an expensive gamble. The engineering difficulties were far beyond expectations. Due to complex geology, severe ventilation and drainage challenges, construction was constantly delayed, and the investment ballooned from the original $4 billion to over $6 billion. Originally planned to begin full production in 2019, it had still not reached the desired output by 2023. The problem was not only delays. More fatal was the fluctuation in copper prices during the project's progress. When the market was down, production costs were close to or even higher than selling prices. In other words, even if the mine was successfully developed, it would be difficult to generate ideal economic returns. This made people realize that the underground transformation of Chuquicamata was more like a gamble they had no choice but to take. Because abandoning it would mean Chile losing a century-old symbol, while continuing meant pouring money into a bottomless pit. In the end, it became a classic case. Technically feasible, economically a failure. Number 9, Istanbul New Airport, Turkey. Istanbul, the city that straddles both Europe and Asia, is known as the crossroads of the world. In the 2010s, the Turkish government decided to build the world's largest airport here, the Istanbul New Airport, IGA. From the very beginning, the project was filled with ambition. Covering an area of more than 76 square kilometers, with a planned passenger capacity of more than 200 million, it was declared the future global number 1. The investment was as high as $10 billion. And the construction speed was astonishing. In just a few years, it was partially put into operation. However, enormous controversy soon followed. The first issue was the site selection. The airport was built on northern forests and wetlands, directly destroying vast ecological environments, disrupting migratory bird routes, and increasing flight safety risks. Environmentalists called it an irreversible ecological disaster. Next was the treatment of workers during construction. Due to the tight schedule, workers labored long hours at high intensity, and work accidents were frequent. In 2018, there was even a large-scale worker protest, drawing international attention. After the airport entered operation, it was far from smooth. At first, frequent flight delays, insufficient ground transportation, and numerous passenger complaints piled up. Although some issues improved over time, criticism that it was too focused on size while neglecting operational details never went away. Today, the Istanbul New Airport indeed operates, but it is more like a case where success and failure coexist. It achieved symbolic national goals, but at the cost of the environment and sky-high expenses, and it will face questions for decades to come. Number 8. Forest City, Malaysia. On the coast of Johor, Malaysia, a mega project once stunned the world, a so-called City of the Future, known as Forest City, jointly developed by a Chinese corporation and the Malaysian government. It consisted of 4 artificial islands, with a total investment of nearly $100 billion USD, designed to house 700,000 residents and promoted as a model of eco-friendly, high-tech, zero-carbon living. From the promotional videos, it looked like a real-life Atlantis. Towering skyscrapers, suspended transit lines, layered sky parks, and intelligent homes. Everything evoked a futuristic sci-fi city. But when people actually stepped inside, they discovered something shocking. There was almost no one there. As of 2024, the city's occupancy rate was less than 5%. Locals joked bitterly, "Forest City has been built, but there's no one in the forest." Its failure stems from a chain of modern illusions, treating real estate as a city and a commercial trailer as the future. No industry, no jobs, no social structure, only empty towers and sea breeze. Today, some of the islands are still under construction, but the project has long transformed from a model of future urbanism into the most expensive ghost city of the 21st century. Number 7. Qatar World Cup Stadiums. The World Cup is the most watched sporting event on the planet, and the 2022 Qatar World Cup was the most expensive in history. To host the event, Qatar spent more than $220 billion in just over a decade, building and renovating 7 large stadiums, along with vast amounts of supporting infrastructure. From a design perspective, these stadiums were indeed stunning. Dazzling exteriors, full air conditioning, even the ability to maintain comfortable temperatures in the desert. The Lusail Stadium, with a capacity of 80,000, was hailed as a miracle in the desert. During the tournament, they hosted countless passionate moments. However, after the World Cup ended, the problems immediately surfaced. Qatar's population is less than 3 million, and local league audiences are extremely small, making it impossible to sustain such massive stadiums. Most of them are destined to sit idle long-term, with some even forced to be partially dismantled or repurposed. Critics called these stadiums classic white elephant projects. They served only 1 month of festivities, but consumed massive amounts of money and labor. Although Qatar's officials proposed removable, transferable solutions, it did not hide the fact that this was the most expensive one-time project in the world. The hidden failure behind this luxury World Cup is clear. Short-term spectacles can amaze the world, but long-term maintenance is the real test. Without ongoing demand, no matter how grand the stadium, it becomes a heavy burden. Number 6. Messina Strait Bridge, Italy. The Messina Strait, about 3.3 kilometers wide, separates mainland Italy from Sicily. Since ancient times, building a bridge across the strait has been the dream of Italians. In the latter half of the 20th century, this dream was raised multiple times, with designs that were breathtaking. A main span of more than 3 kilometers, which, if built, would be the longest suspension bridge in the world. It was not just an engineering feat, but also a national symbol. However, more than half a century has passed, and the bridge has remained only on paper. The reasons are complex. On one hand, the geological conditions are harsh, earthquakes are frequent, and construction costs are extremely high. On the other hand, political corruption, funding issues, and mafia interference repeatedly hindered the project. Although different governments have repeatedly tried to revive it during their terms, it has never broken ground. In the end, the Messina Bridge became the epitome of Italy's engineering predicament, a mix of grand vision, political complexity, and chaotic execution. Its failure tells us mega projects require not only technology and funding, but also political stability and efficient management. Without these, no matter how amazing the design, it will remain forever on the drawing board. Number 5. Montreal Olympic Stadium, Canada. The 1976 Summer Olympics were held in Montreal, Canada, the first North American city to host the Games. The main stadium, the Olympic Stadium, was designed as a futuristic building with a unique leaning tower and a retractable roof. However, from preparation to construction, almost everything went wrong. Originally budgeted at $150 million, final costs soared to $1.6 billion, more than 10 times over budget. Construction delays were severe. Many facilities weren't completed until years after the Olympics had ended. The retractable roof was overly complex, long failed to function properly, and required constant repairs. Worse still, this enormous debt was shouldered by Montreal's citizens. The city government only finally paid it off in 2006, 30 years later. Locals nicknamed the stadium the Big O, but more widely it became known as the Big O. Today, the stadium still stands, but its reputation has long been tied to failure. It proves a simple truth: the festival is fleeting, but the debt can last for generations. Number 4. Boston Big Dig Highway, USA. In the mid-20th century, downtown Boston suffered from severe traffic congestion. To address the issue, the US launched a massive underground highway project known as the Big Dig. Its goal was to move the central elevated highway underground to improve both traffic and the cityscape. At first, the plan looked reasonable, an estimated cost of $2.8 billion and a construction period of 7 years. But reality proved far more complicated. Unpredictable geological conditions, frequent engineering errors, and constant political wrangling derailed the project. In the end, it took 25 years and cost over $15 billion, making it the most expensive highway project in US history. Even worse, quality issues persisted. In 2006, a tunnel ceiling collapsed, causing fatalities. Afterwards, leaks, seepage, and ventilation failures appeared one after another. Although the Big Dig did indeed improve some traffic, its astronomical price tag left many questioning whether it was worth it. The Big Dig became the classic case of a fiscal black hole. It tells us, in mega projects, overly optimistic budgets combined with political complexity and poor management almost inevitably lead to catastrophic overruns. Number 3. California High-Speed Rail, United States. In 2008, California announced the launch of the most ambitious transportation project in US history, the construction of a high-speed railway connecting Los Angeles and San Francisco. The target speed was 350 kilometers per hour, and once completed, it would take only 2 hours and 40 minutes to travel across the entire state. It was hailed as a green transportation revolution that would change America's future. But more than a decade later, the line is still far from complete. The first section, originally planned to open in 2020, remains under construction today. Costs have skyrocketed from the original $33 billion to over $100 billion and are still climbing. Problems have emerged one after another. First came the difficulty of land acquisition. Private ownership is extensive in the US, making negotiations both lengthy and expensive. Next was political interference. Each successive governor had different priorities, leading to constant changes in project direction. Adding to that were the endless tug-of-wars between federal and local funding, design revisions, and environmental approvals, all of which dragged the project into a bureaucratic swamp. Now, the official goal has been repeatedly downgraded, from connecting the entire state to merely building a test section in the Central Valley. The media mockingly calls it the train to nowhere. The essence of this project's failure lies not in technology, but in the system itself. In a structure layered with regulations and bound by short political cycles, no long-term project can escape fragmented management. This railway was supposed to symbolize America's return to the age of speed, but it has instead become a living irony. 15 years and $100 billion later, all it has produced is a stretch of empty track. Number 2. Berlin-Brandenburg Airport, Germany. If failed projects are often associated with less developed countries, then Germany's Brandenburg Airport is the ultimate irony. Germany is renowned for being rigorous and precise, yet this airport revealed the opposite to the world. Construction began in 2006, scheduled to open in 2011. Instead, delays dragged it out 9 full years. The fire safety system was completely unqualified, electrical wiring was a mess, and even the escalators were miscalculated in length. Costs skyrocketed from $2 billion to more than $7 billion. Management changed hands more than 5 times, with corruption scandals erupting repeatedly. Even more ridiculous were the on-site blunders. Some toilets were installed in places without water pipes. Some terminal glass panels cracked before they were even installed. The German media mocked it as the national shame project, and even taxi drivers joked, "The airport you're going to? Sorry, it still hasn't opened." The failure of Brandenburg Airport was not just about overruns and delays, but about utterly destroying the myth of German engineering. It became a symbol. Even the most powerful nation, without oversight and management, can create the world's biggest laughingstock. Number 1. Ryugyong Hotel, Pyongyang, North Korea. In the center of Pyongyang stands a massive triangular building, like a dagger piercing the sky. This is the Ryugyong Hotel. In 1987, North Korea announced it would build the world's tallest hotel, 330 meters high, 105 stories, with more than 3,000 rooms. It was originally planned to open in 1989 to showcase the nation's modern achievements, but funding and technology could not keep up. In the 1990s, Soviet aid was cut off, the economy collapsed, and construction stopped. For the next 16 years, this giant stood bare in the city center, nicknamed the world's tallest unfinished building. In 2008, the building finally received a glass facade, making it look more imposing. But inside, it remains completely empty, without electricity, plumbing, or interior finishes. Outwardly, a futuristic landmark, in essence nothing more than a hollow concrete tomb. The Ryugyong Hotel has been recognized by Guinness World Records as the world's tallest uncompleted building, and architects unanimously call it the biggest failure in modern architectural history. Why does it rank first? Because it represents not only wasted money, but an entire nation's detachment from reality. Decades later, it still stands like a scar, reminding the world, when a project is built only for vanity, without the strength to fulfill it, it becomes a monument of shame. From Chile to Turkey, from Malaysia to Canada, from Boston to Berlin, from Pyongyang to Qatar, the pattern is clear. When mega projects are driven by vanity, politics, or blind ambition, they stop being monuments of progress. Instead, they become monuments of failure. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us what you think in the comments. See you next time.